Hello, and welcome to Firefly's Family Game Night. I'm your host, Emily, with Firefly Toys and Games. Thank you so much for joining me. With Valentine's Day being so close, we wanted to look at some two-player games that you and your partner could play and still have some fun this Valentine's weekend. So, the theme is to duel or not to duel. A lot of two-player games are going to focus on the competitive versions, but there are a few out there that you can play duet. You can play together and have the primary objective that you both work towards. Let's take a look at a couple of those now. So to start off our family game night games of to duel or not to duel, we're going to begin with to duel. Kingdomino Duel by Blue Orange Games is a great way to compete against your partner to be able to have the most points at the end of the game. Very similarly set up to Kingdomino, this is a roll and write game that they produced to kind of give you a travelable version or a simplified version of playing dominoes, but with dice. So what you have is each person receives a player board, which you will use to control your map, to keep up with points, and to be able to identify when you have dignitaries, high dignitaries in the game. Those are indicated by the little crosses that are found on the dice. Just like Kingdomino, you want to build your castle's domain very specifically set up. So you have different coat of arms, as we saw with the dice, and there's different coat of arms throughout the game that you could possibly come across. So you want to group them as close together as possible to receive the most points. Now, just like in the original, if you were to have these two dice, you would have one high dignitary and one that is not a high dignitary, which means basically this is equivalent to a crown that you would have had in the original Kingdomino. So this would give you 0 points, but this would give you a point. So together, they would create 2 points because 2 times 1 is 2. So that's the way that they have set up in Kingdomino Duel. We just have coat of arms instead of territories because our territory is already outlaid in our kingdom. So we're just trying to assign different coat of arms to different areas on our board. So now that we have chosen player A to start the game, we're going to let them roll the dice. So player A has went ahead and rolled the dice. So the way this works is the first player will choose 1 die, second player will choose 2, leaving the remaining die to go back to player 1. When you receive your chosen die, you will mark them off on your player's map, respectively. If you were to have rolled one that had a high dignitary on it, you would not be able to use this for our wizard's map, which I'll explain above in a moment. So, player A already had a turn previously, so they've selected 2 coat of arms from a different round. So we're going to add these 2 to this map. So, when playing Kingdomino Duel, you have to abide by the rules of the game for any of the Kingdomino games. When you place a domino down, so your domino consists of 2 dice in this game, they have to be paired either beside a remaining coat of arms that's been played on a previous turn, or beside the castle, which the castle produces neutral ground right next to it. You can have 2 different coat of arms right next to each other, but you have to remember that will now become a different domain anytime that you do that. So player A is going to choose this die. The second player will choose these 2, and player A is left with the remaining die. Now, to go ahead and explain our wizard's map, whenever we play dominoes on our field, we go ahead and each player respectively in the turn order that we had, so player A will go first. They will mark off the dice that they rolled on the game board. So we received the coat of arms with 1 dot and the one with 2 dots. So you would go ahead and mark the first coat of arms and the second coat of arms. And then player 2 will mark their coat of arms on their side of the board. Why does this matter? Well, there's really cool powers that are right here in the center, and the first player to complete the power sequence will have the ability to use the power granted by those coat of arms. That means you can place your dominoes out of sequence, or you can split your domino in half, so to speak, and place your dice separately anywhere on your game board that is connected. You can also use this if you are the first person to roll. Instead of picking one and waiting for your second die, you can go ahead and claim this power and go ahead and pick 2 right off the bat if it's 2 you really, really need. Or you can use this that after you've drafted your domino die, you can turn a die to whatever side you'd like for it to show for coat of arms. This one will allow you in a specific domain that you've chosen, a specific coat of arm that you've chosen, to gain 3 prestige points for every domain that you have. Now, these are end game that have to be used immediately. You can't hold on to it. So at that moment in time, that coat of arms is the one that you choose. And then this one is going to allow you to add 1 cross, which means you get to add a dignitary anywhere on your map that already has a die on the board. Now, to write it on the map, player 1 will go ahead and write their dominoes on the die, their domino die on the board. So again, the castle is neutral ground. It looks like we already have 2 different coat of arms that are here. We don't have any dignitaries on this board, so we might go ahead and use the castle grounds as a spot of starting a brand new place. So we've used that one. And then we'll go ahead and add our second domino right here in its sequence. Now, what we could have done is we could have went this way, or we could have went this way after placing our first domino, because remember, it is technically a domino sequence, so we won't be able to split it up into a different territory. If we would have started over here, you would have had 3 different options you could have placed him. So it's just up to you whether you want to place. Now, they do suggest in the rulebook, it's not a necessary thing to do, but you can actually shade in the line in between your coat of arms that are different. And that way, when you get to the end of the game and you start scoring, it makes it a whole lot easier to be able to tell where your domain starts and ends. So just a little tip for you. All right, so let's go ahead and get player 2's map finished. All right, so player 2 has finished theirs. Now, just to let you know, these on the side, this is for end game scoring. This has no middle of the game points for anything. So just to let you know, it's a great way to help keep a score at the end of the game. We'll do one more turn just to show you. All right. Oh, we have a question mark, which means you would be able to choose whatever you would like to do. So we're definitely going to choose that for player B. Player A will be able to choose another coat of arms. So we'll select these 2, leaving this one with player 2. All right, player 2 was the first one to go, so we'll go ahead and use them to go ahead and start. So this one means that you can choose any of the coat of arms that you need, but the question mark does not allow you to be able to choose from the wizard's map. So we'll make it one of these. Okay. And then this one will get to cross off on the map. And so it needs to go one of these 3 places. So we'll go ahead and stick it right here. All right, so that's player 2's. Let's go and take care of player 1's now. This is a high dignitary, so we will not be able to mark it off on our board above, but we can mark this one off, so we're that much closer to being able to get that. Now, as you notice, some of these powers are so much easier to get a hold of, but they're harder to roll, and some of them are a little bit harder to obtain because they come up so often. So that's the reason for that. So looks like one of our best options is probably to go ahead and continue this path of being able to put the dominoes next to each other. So we'll go on this side, and we'll have the single line down. Now, because this is a high dignitary, I'm glad we rolled that so I could show you the little bubbles on the side of the coat of arms. That's what that's there for, is to indicate the high dignitary. So what we'll do is, since it's only a 1, we're just going to cross off 1 bubble. But there are a couple of them that you will actually have a total of 2. So like this one, for an example, it would give you 2 bubbles to fill in, whereas this one we just had the 1. You would go until the end of the game, and at the end of the game, you would choose your domain. You would just go ahead and go down the list, and you begin calculating the points. Again, this is just like King Domino and Queen Domino. So what you would do is you would take the domain territory, which is 2 locations for this one, and you would multiply it by any dignitaries that you would have. So it'd be 2 times 1 would be 2. So you would write it over here on the side. If you were able to get the wizard that had the 3 prestige points in addition to your coat of arms that you chose, you'd be able to add those up right here as well. And then you would tally up each of your areas for a total at the bottom. Now this is a duel, so whoever has the most points wins the game. To continue our family game night to duel or not to duel, we will be choosing to not duel with Codenames Duet. This will be a game by Czech Games Edition where we are working together to find all of our agents. For those of you who know the game Codenames, Codenames Duet plays very similarly to the way that Codenames plays, except for you don't have individual teams that you're working with. You actually are a team together, you and your partner. So we have a total of 25 agents, and we have a total of 15 of them that belong to us. So we are trying to identify which of those 15 belong on our team versus which ones do not. Just like in Codenames, we do have our mastermind sheet. Now, the difference is it's actually double-sided. So player 1 has access to this side. Player 2 has access to this side. Each side will only give you a total of 9 agents, which are the green blocks that you are trying to find. And they are in different locations. Some of them are the same, but some of them are in different locations on either side. One thing to watch out for that is not in the original Codenames is timer tokens. Timer tokens have almost like a mistake quality, so they would be our civilians that you would find in the original Codenames. Anytime that you make a guess, if I was to say book and the answer was not book, I would place one of the civilians over there to mark that it was not a correct agent. One other thing to note that is different, in the original game you had 1 assassin, but in Codenames Duet you have 3. Something to keep in mind though, the 3 on player 1's side is different from the 3 on player 2's side. So what might be a correct agent on my side, if I would have guessed during your turn, would have resulted in an assassin. And I'll show you an example in just a moment. So when we choose who gets to go first, what you're going to do is you're going to take a look at and familiarize yourself with the agents in accordance with your mastermind sheet as to which agents belong to us. So for an example, it's just us playing. Wedding and Minute are going to be both of our agents. Sleep is another one. Down here at the bottom you have Rope and Avalanche. And then down here we have a total of 4 in a row on the bottom starting at the left-hand side. So we have Sheet, Tuxedo, Shampoo, and Frog as our other agents. Now again, for the other side, it's going to be completely opposite. Now, just so that we know, Shampoo is also one of the agents that is identified on both of the markers, but one thing that's different is Boss is actually notated on their side, as well as Rope. You also have Peach, Waitress, and Computer, which we did not have. And then they have Boxer and Kung Fu, and they also have Sleep. So they're going to have some different agents according to which side you're going to rest on. So just so that you know, just keep that in mind as you're picking your agents, and watch out for those assassins. Try to find things that you will not be able to have your opponent hit, so that you don't risk ending the game prematurely. One other thing about this really cool game is you can actually go out on a mission. They've included a missions worksheet in this, and whenever you play a standard game, which means the 2 blue tokens go away, these are just some extra help. So instead of 11 tokens, you'll start with 9 timer tokens in the game. Once you complete your first mission of finding all 15 of your agents without having over 9 mistakes, then you're able to begin filling out the board. We're going to start in Prague, which is a standard game, which is 9, which allows for 9 mistakes. From there, we have the option of trying to fulfill other missions around us. So we can fly to Berlin or Moscow or Cairo. And then from that point, once we complete those missions, we can branch out even farther and go across the world and complete missions all over the world. Now, the numbers are very significant. So the first number tells you how many timer tokens or civilians that you start the game with. The second number, so 5 for Cairo, means you can only have up to 5 mistakes in the entire game. Once you fulfill those, you can continue going and conquer the world. There's also notes at the bottom to be able to indicate if you have any problems throughout the game, if one of your missions ended with an assassin, or whatever. So let's get started playing the game. For the first round, I'm going to give a 2-player hint. That's going to be groom, which means there are 2 of our agents out here that identify with the clue groom. Which ones do you think they are? Well, one thing that might stand out would be wedding. Because in a wedding, you would definitely have a bride and a groom. So if you want to go ahead and select wedding, you would place your finger on wedding. If it matches my side and it is a green agent, then you would take the corresponding agent and place it over top, saying, yes, you are correct. If they have identified correctly, they can now make, since it was a clue of 2, then they can make the second guess. Looking on the board, maybe they would want to do tuxedo. Tuxedo is also correct, so you would play a second agent. Now we would pass to the second player's turn. So the second player's clue, to me, was fight. So when I'm looking at the board, there's a couple of options that we could choose from. So Kung Fu, boxer. I mean, I don't know. I really wouldn't want to fight a tiger. You can fight sleep. Those of you who might be having some sleeping problems lately, that might come to mind first. For the clue of fight, you could also do kick, because, I mean, that would probably be my first reaction in a fight, would be to kick. So there's at least 3 or more options that you could choose from for the clue fight. So we're just going to pick one. Let's go with boxer. Boxers tend to be in fights. So if boxer is correct, which it is, they would place an agent down. Now let's say that we're going to go ahead and go with the second word. Let's go ahead and go with kick. So they're going to look, and it is actually a neutral agent. It is indicated by the fact that it is a tan space. So we're going to take one of our civilians and place it on there. Now, if it would have been my first guess, it ends the turn immediately and play passes back to the next person. Since it was the second guess, it doesn't matter because it also signifies the end of the round, which would pass back to the first player. So you're going to continue going until one of 2 things happen. You either have found all of your agents, or you have found the assassin. So it's up to you. Can you and your partner fulfill the mission in Codenames Duet? Or do you need a little extra help? Now, just so that you know, this is specifically made for 2 people, but they do say in the rule books, It's Codenames. If you really want to add more people to the game, you're more than happy to. And they do provide those rules for you inside the rulebook for Codenames Duet as well. And just one more thing to mention, when you get done with your first round, or if you play a couple of games and you want some different agents, you do have double-sided agents. So you have Sheet and Napoleon on one. All of them are different here. And you also have a whole nother stack, and there's so much more in the box. I didn't pull them all out. There's so many more options. So it's such a variable game when it comes to agent names. So you are only limited by your imagination on finding which agents belong to you. Well, I hope you enjoyed Kingdomino Duel and Codenames Duet. To find some more dueling or not so dueling two-player games, take a look at our line, and there's so many more out there. From set collecting to area control to deck building, there are so many two-player options out there that you will find to either duel or duet with your next opponent. Well, thank you so much for joining me this family game night, and I hope you've enjoyed the two-player games for dueling or duetting, and I hope you all have a great Valentine's weekend. Bye.